The fans had seen enough. Game after game, they watched their Indiana Fever stumble into the same predictable traps. Whispers turned into roars as blame zeroed in on one figure, head coach Stephanie White. Critics claimed her motion offense was draining the spark out of the team, suffocating the natural brilliance of Caitlin Clark. What was once marketed as the future of basketball looked more like a blueprint for mediocrity. Fans flooded comment sections, radio shows, and Twitter threads demanding accountability. How could a coach blessed with such a generational star fail to create something electrifying on the court? For Clark supporters, it was painful to watch. They knew her game was built on speed, spacing, and freedom, not half-court traps and endless static movement. Yet every possession seemed to be a slow-motion car wreck, with Clark forced to operate inside a system designed for someone else. It wasn't just a poor fit, it was sabotaged by structure. What should have been highlight reel nights became grinds, and every misstep fed the growing narrative that Stephanie White had no idea how to unleash Clark's true potential. The offense looked shackled. The fans wanted answers. In hushed tones, Fever faithful wondered aloud. Was this by design? Was White clinging to an outdated philosophy to prove she was in control, even if it meant dimming her brightest star? To many, it felt like watching an artist forced to paint with broken brushes. Clark's creativity was drained by plays that slowed her down, stripped her confidence, and erased her flair. What should have been Indiana's golden era, instead, resembled a stalled revolution. And if the revolution was stalled, one burning question remained. Who was holding it back and why? Then came the press conference, and the tension snapped. Caitlin Clark didn't throw her coach on the bus, but her words carried weight, heavy with unspoken truths. She admitted the team needed to play faster, confessed they were stuck in gears too slow for her style. It was a kind of honesty that stung, because it sounded too close to reality. Her tone wasn't sharp, but the message lingered like smoke after a fire. She wasn't blaming anyone outright, but she wasn't protecting them either. The cracks in the facade were no longer whispers. They were public. That single moment became the spark. Was Caitlin calling out her coach? Was it a slip, or was it intentional? Fans debated endlessly, dissecting her tone, her pauses, her body language. To some, it was a warning shot, a polite declaration that she wasn't willing to be buried beneath outdated systems. To others, it was proof that Clark was too frustrated to keep playing nice. Either way, the message was clear. Something wasn't working. If the Indiana Fever didn't adapt, their star might not just dim, it might burn out before their eyes. The questions about Clark's health weren't just physical. They were existential. On the court, she looked exhausted, drained by the relentless demands of carrying a franchise and a league on her back. Off the court, the weight was heavier still. Every camera, every sponsor, every headline demanded more. She played through fatigue, through hits that left fans gasping, through moments where her drive looked fueled by caffeine and sheer willpower. But the signs were there. Shoulders slumped, eyes heavy, movement slower. This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about how much one player could endure before breaking. The WNBA marketed her as invincible, but no athlete is invincible when the system turns a blind eye. Night after night, Clark absorbed punishing hits with no whistles, enduring the kind of treatment that would send NBA stars to the free throw line 20 times a game. Yet in the WNBA, she was expected to take it silently, to keep smiling while the league cashed in on her stardom. Fans knew it wasn't sustainable. Every collision risked a nightmare scenario. Another injury, another stretch without the league's brightest star. And without her, everything, ticket sales, ratings, hype, collapsed.
It's not hard math. No Caitlin Clark, no crowds. No Caitlin Clark, no revenue surge. Everyone wanted to see her play, not limp off the court wrapped in ice. That's why the cries grew louder. Protect her, not because she's special, but because she's essential. Without Clark, the WNBA risks slipping back into obscurity, its newfound spotlight fading as quickly as it appeared. She is the financial engine, the marketing miracle, the cultural wave. Yet instead of wrapping her in protection, the league left her exposed, battered nightly, her health chipped away in real time before millions of viewers. For Caitlin, it wasn't just bruises on her body, it was bruises on her spirit. Each time she hit the hardwood, fans felt a collective shiver. How long could she keep this up? She was young, resilient, but no human could withstand constant punishment without consequence. The danger wasn't just missing a week or two. The danger was robbing her of the longevity and brilliance she was destined for. Watching her battered night after night felt less like witnessing greatness and more like watching a cautionary tale in motion. Clark wasn't just playing basketball, she was surviving it. Then came the officiating fiascos that pushed everything over the edge. Fans weren't imagining it. The tape showed it clearly. Missed calls, swallowed whistles, blatant fouls ignored as Clark was grabbed, shoved, even tackled. It wasn't just bad refereeing. It felt deliberate, almost personal. Critics accused officials of turning Clark into a test subject, seeing how much abuse one player could take before breaking. Every non-call wasn't just an insult to Clark, but to the fans who paid to see her shine. The referees weren't protecting the game. They were distorting it, and Clark was paying the price. The narrative shifted fast. Clark wasn't just competing against offenders. She was competing against officials who seemed determined to break her spirit. It looked less like a basketball game and more like an endurance trial, as if she were being tested for pain thresholds rather than shooting percentages. Fans couldn't understand how the league allowed it. How could a star player, the most important rookie in decades, be left so exposed? The silence from officials and executives only fueled the conspiracy theories. Was the league punishing her popularity? Was it jealousy? Or was it simply incompetence taken to dangerous extremes? When the Fever faced the Las Vegas Aces, everything came to a boiling point. Indiana had the game in reach, only to let it slip away in the final minutes. An 89-81 loss might have looked ordinary on paper, but to fans, it symbolized something deeper. The team didn't just lose, they deflated. Energy drained, spirit broken, and Clark, their anchor, looked visibly frustrated. It wasn't just a scoreboard that hurt. It was the realization that the Fever, once hopeful of becoming contenders, had no spark left. Their brightest light was being smothered, and the franchise seemed powerless to stop it. Disappointment spread like wildfire. Fans weren't just angry at the result. They were disillusioned with the process. This wasn't the Fever team they were promised. Clark was supposed to elevate Indiana to greatness. Yet instead, the team looked hollow, relying on her to carry them, but unable to lift her in return. Commentators described the performance as uninspired, flat, and soulless. Something was missing: structure, leadership, maybe both. And with each loss, the suspicion grew. Maybe this wasn't a temporary slump. Maybe it was the symptom of a deeper sickness inside the organization that no one wanted to address. The proposed solution was bold, but controversial: move Clark off the ball. Analysts argued that taking the burden off her shoulders could balance the offense and give others the chance to contribute. In theory, it made sense. By running her through motion sets, defenses wouldn't be able to trap her as easily, and the team wouldn't collapse if she struggled. But fans saw it differently. Clark wasn't built to hide in the corner. She was built to lead, to dictate tempo, to control games with the ball in her hands. Could Indiana survive by dimming her light? This debate split the fan base. Some saw it as a necessary adjustment, a way to protect Clark from overexposure and exhaustion. Others saw it as a betrayal, stripping her of the very identity that made her a phenomenon. Every possession mattered now, not just for the score, but for the symbolism. Was Indiana building around Clark, or were they dismantling her piece by piece? Moving her off ball might solve one problem, but it created another. It signaled that the Fever didn't trust her to be who she was born to be: the engine, the architect, the star.
Clark's slump made the debate louder. In that fateful game against Vegas, she shot 7 for 20 from the field, a brutal 1 for 10 from deep. For a shooter of her caliber, it was shocking. Across the last 2 games, she had gone just 1 for 17 from beyond the arc, numbers that didn't even seem real. Commentators called it uncharacteristic, but fans couldn't ignore the concern. Was this fatigue? Was it the offense suffocating her rhythm? Or was it the pressure, the weight of carrying too much too soon? What they knew for certain was that this wasn't the Caitlin Clark they recognized. And yet, amid the slump, the message from analysts was clear: keep shooting. Shooters shoot. The only way out of a cold streak is through it. Every miss hurt, But the greater danger was hesitation. When Clark passed up a wide-open shot, fans gasped. That wasn't her. Caitlin Clark didn't second-guess. She didn't blink. For her to pass up, a look said more than the box score ever could. It was a sign of doubt creeping in, the kind of mental battle that could haunt a player. This wasn't just about mechanics. It was about confidence unraveling under pressure. On the sidelines, Stephanie White's coaching only deepened the crisis. Fans watched her bark orders 1 second, then contradict herself the next. One possession, she screamed for tempo. The next, she demanded patience. The result? A team frozen in confusion, unsure which identity to follow. Clark, once fearless, now glanced constantly toward the bench, searching for clarity that never came. It wasn't strategy. It was chaos disguised as leadership. And as the game slipped further out of control, the Fever didn't just look lost. They looked leaderless. White's gestures weren't coaching signals. They were noise. To Clark, the psychological toll was mounting. Every mixed signal chipped away at her instincts, forcing her to question decisions she once made with lightning precision. Her passes slowed. Her attacks hesitated. The creativity that defined her game now looked muffled. Fans who adored her fire were watching her dim. And behind it all stood a coach who seemed content to tinker with rotations like a Pinterest board, rather than provide a foundation. It was more than frustrating. It was heartbreaking. Clark wasn't just losing games. She was losing herself. One hesitation, one contradiction, one mismanaged moment at a time. It wasn't just physical exhaustion. It was emotional suffocation. Clark entered the league as a revolution, a once-in-a-generation talent meant to change everything. Instead, she found herself fighting nightly battles on every front. Referees, defenders, coaching systems, even her own confidence. The league that promised to protect her genius instead used it up like fuel in a dying engine. Every game felt like survival, and survival wasn't enough for someone who was supposed to thrive. The question loomed larger with each passing night. How long could Caitlin Clark endure this before it broke her spirit completely? Stephanie White's offseason promises now looked like cruel irony. She had spoken of building around Clark, of creating a system that maximized her talents. Yet when Clark faltered, the entire team crumbled. Every loss, every bad shooting night, exposed how dependent they were on her. Fans felt lied to. This wasn't development. It was dependence disguised as strategy. Clark wasn't being elevated. She was being abandoned. The coach who had vowed to unlock her potential was now presiding over her decline. And the more fans watched, the more they wondered if Indiana wasn't just wasting games. They were wasting history. The statistical breakdowns made it undeniable. Clark's turnovers led the league. Her efficiency plummeted. Her shooting percentages cratered. To her detractors, it was proof she wasn't ready. But to her supporters, it was evidence of a deeper failure. A league and a franchise that refused to protect their most valuable asset. Every bad number wasn't a reflection of Clark alone. It was a sum of exhaustion, poor officiating, mismatched systems, and relentless pressure. Numbers could tell you what happened, but they couldn't tell you why. And the why was far darker than any box score suggested. The warning signs are flashing bright red. If nothing changes, no new coach, no new game plan, no structural support, Caitlin Clark's future could be derailed before it even begins. Instead of watching a superstar's rise, fans may be forced to watch her unravel. What should have been her glow-up season now feels like a dystopian tragedy. Each game another act in a play she didn't audition for. The league wanted her brilliance, but they failed to shield it. And now, piece by piece, the brilliance is fading. Unless something changes fast, the cost will be catastrophic. Because Caitlin Clark is not just another rookie. She is the story. She is the reason fans tune in, the reason tickets sell, the reason the WNBA is experiencing a renaissance. To let her be broken down by negligence, by bad whistles, by poor leadership, it's unthinkable. And yet, it's happening in real time, right before our eyes. The danger isn't just that Indiana is losing games. The danger is that women's basketball is losing its brightest flame. A flame that, once extinguished, will take more than a generation to replace. The clock is ticking. The WNBA must decide.